Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. Thank you for tuning in. If you could hit like, hit subscribe, share this out, really helps out the channel. I appreciate it. As we're all aware of the government overreach over the last couple of years, um, one of the central problems with central planning is unintended consequences. So they try to solve a problem. If you've ever seen Christmas Vacation, when he's at the Hoover Dam and it starts leaking somewhere, puts his thumb in it, and then it starts leaking somewhere else. And he puts his gum in it, and then it starts leaking somewhere else. That's kind of how central planning works, right? They try to solve a problem, and it creates more problems. They try to medicate it, essentially. And central planning, meaning top-down authoritarian, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to lock down, we need to give everyone money, has caused quite a few distortions in the market. But I think there's some very long-term consequences that we need to be aware of. And I saw this article from Fortune magazine that I wanted to share with you guys. It says Gen Z young millennials have found a new way to afford luxury handbags and watches, living with mom and dad. Okay. No, I'm an advocate for saving money, living with mom and dad, saving up for down payment, all that kind of stuff. But I want you to think kind of beyond the story. Why? Why are so many people living with mom and dad? And that's what we're going to get into. U.S. Census data shows that nearly half of all young adults aged between 18 and 29 still live at home, the highest level since the end of the Great Depression. Now, let's talk about knock-on effects of this. If you live at home, typically you don't have a family, so you're not producing children. And societally, long term, what that means is less workers. Less workers means less taxpayers. Less workers means less people to join the military. So, on top of that, these people who would be in the market for a starter home, they can't afford it. So, they'll be competing for a starter home in maybe their 30s, when other young people, the new generation, is trying to get a starter home. So you see how this has knock-on effects, because the housing market went absolutely berserk because of central planning and government intervention, and now the highest level of 18 to 29-year-olds since the Great Depression live at home, which will have decade-long consequences. According to analysis led by Edouard Albin, this structural trend has been overlooked in the context of rising luxury spending over the last decade. As older Gen Zs and young millennials have spent their rent and food or had their rent and food paid for by their parents, their discretionary spending is increasing, allowing them to buy up more designer handbag, watches, and jewelry. So again, um, this is more of a kind of a micro trend. But if you're living at home, not paying your student loans, not paying rent, not paying for food, and you're not even using that opportunity to save. Instead, you're buying Gucci and luxury watches. What kind of knock-on effects does that have? If you extrapolate it out for an entire generation, or majority of a generation, who instead of saving money to live at home because of home prices being so expensive, they're using that extra money to buy uh, deflating or depreciating assets. Gen Z is expected to account for 40% of global luxury goods market by 2035. Crazy. According to the trade journal Business and Fashion, the luxury conglomerates are focused their efforts on marketing to this demographic. Young adults around the world have been a very strong factor in luxury growth over the past decade. All right, so to me, there's a story behind the story. And that story is that when you have half of millennials and Gen Zers still living at home, what do you think is going to happen? What trends do you think will come up in the next decade? I think we have a population problem, meaning too little population growth in the United States. Even Chuck Schumer said this the other day. He said, "Hey, we need to bring in more immigrants because Americans aren't having kids. Maybe that's by design." But let's just assume for a minute that you grant all central planning that happened in 2021, 2020, and 2022 with the pandemic. It was good motivation. What was the outcome? Like, if you think people's motivation is pure as the driven snow, which is fine, what is the outcome? What are the knock on effects? And when you centrally plan for millions of people and top down say, this is how we need to do things, bad stuff happens. An entire generation can't afford a home, and therefore they're living at home, starting their life later, having kids later. And so, therefore, because of the central planning, you will feel the knock on effects of this decades later. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. See you guys in the next one. Peace.